Hey, everybody, this is a Love and Relo special edition. This is breaking news here. The voice of the relocation industry. I'm your host, Ben Cross. I am joined by the illustrious, magnificent Chuck White, president of IAM. Chuck, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I dressed up for you. I got something besides my normal pajama top on. So
we appreciate the effort, Chuck. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
There
is no dress code for Love and Relo if people haven't noticed yet. But no. So we've got breaking news today, Chuck. So some news just came down the pipe, and that's why we wanted to come live right now and bring it to everybody live. I'm going on to LinkedIn. I want to make sure everybody's on with us before we hop into this. So yes, it does look like we are live there. We got folks coming in. We are live. We got a little bit of delay. Hey, if you're watching this on LinkedIn, go ahead, hit that like button, hit that applause button that lets everybody know we are live. We got 10, 11 people on right now on Facebook, YouTube. They're coming in. They're trickling in on LinkedIn right now. Go ahead and also drop your name, the company you work for, where in the world you are right now. I want to know where you're at, maybe give you a shout out. Feel free to leave some comments and some questions. We got folks trickling in, 6, 8. Yep, come on. Welcome. Grab a seat. Plenty in the front row. There we go. Oh, yeah. Here they come, Chuck. All right.
All right.
Gather around, children. Here we go. So,
we need a campfire here. Come on.
We do. We need a fire. Chuck, where are you right now? We'll start with little.
I am sitting at the island in my kitchen. I got my dining room behind me in beautiful downtown Springfield, Virginia.
Lovely. Springfield is lovely this time of year. Here we go. We got about 40 people on the LinkedIn. Got another 13 there on Facebook. So we're going to tell everybody right now. So Chuck, why don't you go ahead and just kind of tell us where we are, what we're finding out, and how this is unfolding right now.
Sure. So we're talking about the Global Household Goods Contract, which is the single source contract or sole source contract that the U.S. Transportation Command, which is the element that oversees household goods for the Department of Defense, they have indicated that today was likely to be the day that the award for that contract would be announced. And though it is not out officially, I've talked to a number of the final four in this process, and 3 of the 4 have been told no. And then obviously 1 of the 4 has been told yes. And the contract award winner is going to be really it's a consortium of multiple companies, but names that just about everybody on the call will have heard of. The named winner is ARC, American Roll-On Roll-Off Carrier, which is a U.S. flag ocean shipping company. But they've partnered with a number of very well-known entities in the moving and mobility space. Unigroup, which is Mayflower United, Atlas World Group, Sudeth, and one other that maybe is not as well known is a group called IAL, International Auto Logistics, which is the contract holder for the POV, personally owned vehicles contract for the Department of Defense. They also handle probably a lot of the Department of State moves as well on their personally owned vehicles. So huge consortium, 2 of the largest van lines in the nation, one of the largest individual agents for the Unigroup family, Sudeth, and ARC, which is one of the larger roll-on, roll-off bulk ocean freight companies. So big group.
Wow. And for those of you watching right now on LinkedIn, please go ahead and hit that like and applause button or maybe the thinking face at this point. Also, drop a comment in there. I want to know how you feel about this as well. I want to hear some reactions. Okay. This is, it's funny, Chuck. They've been saying they were going to announce this, We all expected it. Now it happens, and I can't help but being blown away nonetheless, even though this is kind of what I thought was going to happen, to be honest with you. I mean,
Yeah.
I look at this, I mean, to your point, probably the two largest asset-based moving conglomerates in the country.
Don't forget Serva, who is really kind of 1A with Unigroup in terms of the largest, with Atlas being third. But interestingly enough, Serva was a bidder on the contract. They were one of the ones that did not get the award. There were two others. There was TMM, Total Military Management, was one of the partners that was spearheaded by Crowley Logistics. And then Tier 1, another move manager in the DoD program, partnered with one of the large defense contractors, KBR, Kellogg Brown and Root. So yeah, there are three pretty significant players, particularly in the government arena, that came in second. So we'll see where that goes.
So we got questions coming in here. One person, Doug Powers, asks, when does it go into effect?
Good question. So the award happens today. There's a transition period really that goes for the rest of the year. In February of 2021, next year, in 10 months from now or so, the official kickoff to the contract will begin. They'll phase in first the domestic program. They will do 25% of the domestic program for DoD in February, 25 more in March, 25 more in April, and then finish up with the entire domestic side of the DoD program in May of 2021. Then they'll operate as the key award winner through 21's peak season. And then they start after the peak season in 21, bringing in the international side of the business.
And how many shipments are we talking about, Chuck?
You're talking about 400,000 shipments annually, to the tune of about your breaking news 2 billion. I think it's probably closer to 2.5 billion annually in revenue associated with this contract. And it's a significant contract with all of the option years, et cetera. If those come into play, this could be 8 or 9 years of a single entity, a single consortium operating this entire program, which is 15 to 20% of the entire world market. This is huge.
Of the entire world market, not just the U.S.
World.
So, I mean, just the impact, this is going to have an impact across continents. I mean, some people say, well, Ben, this is just the U.S. moving market.
No.
But this is going to impact overseas as well. I mean, you think about all the countries that the United States has military activities in, and all the supply chains that go into servicing that.
100%.
What are some of the, I mean, 400,000 shipments, and they're gonna. I'm struggling with the enormity and the scale of this program, and the idea of putting it with one consortium. Now, granted, there's several companies that are going to come together and stand something up that's going to support this. But the sheer enormity and size and scale of this project is going to be unlike anything we've ever seen, I think.
No, we've never seen anything like this. When you look at the domestic van lines, and you look at what their footprint is on the international side, when you look at a steamship line operating ships all over the world, when you look at all of the participants in this, you're talking about the behemoth. You're talking about the giant in the industry in the world. And so that's where I have a little bit of my concerns with when that entity takes over and really gets this operating in 2021, 2022. My goodness, they're going to control such volume. Do they control the entire market's pricing? Can they leverage that into other aspects of moving and mobility? It remains to be seen. But there are going to be some significant winners in this. And unfortunately, I think there's going to be some significant losers as well as we move forward.
Well, and there's going to definitely be some reshuffling. right?
Yep. Yep.
You know, you have carriers who have been military carriers for generations,
Yep.
who are now may or have a decision to make. You know, what are they going to do, right?
Sure.
They're going to paint their trucks. Are they going to get into a different line of work? Are they going to close shop? What's going to happen?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. So I was in San Diego, California before all this craziness started.
Mm-hmm.
This was in January, and visited a number of IAM members while I was out there. And so I visited a fairly large agency out there, a smallish agency, a freight forwarder, and all of them participate in the DoD program. Mm-hmm. And I will, looking back on it right now, I can see 2 out of the 3 potentially not being in business in a year because of it. They're going to have to look to diversify, because it just makes sense to me that a large entity like that is going to have to try to find efficiencies and build those efficiencies into their technology. If you do have the technology, if you do have trucks and warehouses and men, I think you will be able to, if you have the opportunity to work with that new contractor, you're going to be able to build up, and you'll be able to service a significant number of shipments, because they can promise you definitively this much traffic in a year. Whereas if you're a smaller guy that is not as up to date on the technology, et cetera, that guy down the street who's larger can probably take your workload and put you in a very difficult situation. There's no place else to go for the work now. If you're an agent in San Diego or Washington, D.C. or whatever, if you don't work with that company, then you don't work in the DoD arena. That's it. There's no place else to say, oh, I'll go and see if I can get work from this other entity. There's none of that anymore.
Well, none of that in the military side. I mean,
in the military,
there's other verticals, right? You do have the corporate relocation market. You do have the COD market, but you may not have the acumen for that. You know,
if you've been if you've been operating in the DoD environment, and that's been the focus of your workload. Yeah, you need to be thinking about diversifying now, or you need to be making that call to those people right now saying, what role can I play for you? I'm here, and please, let's talk.
Yeah, and well, the irony too is we talk about carriers who are traditionally or agents who are traditionally military focused. You know, when you look at the companies that won this, United, Mayflower, and Atlas, these are carriers that, in my observation, are traditionally actually corporate relocation carriers. Yep. And now they're going to be thrusting the weight of their capacity behind servicing this business, one would guess. Of course you are. And so now there's going to be a huge capacity crunch on the other side of the game as well.
Very potential. Yeah.
A lot of reshuffling going on.
Yeah, I don't think it's well understood exactly what the business plan for these organizations is going to be. Will they maintain the current structure? I mean, this is a, in quotes, move management contract. That's the way they're terming it. Mm-hmm. So you don't necessarily have to be putting the DoD shipments on your trucks. You could be looking at doing the same business mix for your organization internally for those award winners. They're going to obviously have to staff up to be able to handle 400,000 moves, to coordinate all of those moves, and then build the relationship with all of the underlying service providers. So again, they may still, because they've got agency families, Atlas, Sudeth, Unigroup, they've got agency families that they have to support, and each one of them has maybe a different strength or a weakness. Many of them may be strong in the COD market. Some may be very strong in the relo market. It just depends. They're not going to force all of them to start saying, I'm going to do DoD. So they're going to have many, many partners. But yeah, to coordinate that is going to be significant.
Well, and you bring up a good point, because the nature of the agency van line relationship is such that van lines can't force tonnage to the agent, just like an agent can't force tonnage to a driver because of the 1099 relationship. But so they're going to entice them, and I'm sure they're going to handle a lot. But it's going to be very interesting. We got a ton of people in the chat here blowing up here, and please go ahead and ask questions. Leave some comments. I'm just going to give shout outs real quick here and go down the line here. Brian from IM. Hey, Hosea, Emily, Jeff, Ed Ooms, Molly Feldman, John Case, Lynn Greenberg, Juliana Hager, Josh Rose, looking for some Jurgen Tillman. Brian asked, where's Becky?
Well, she's probably hanging with the cats right now. So you may see my wife flash through and our cat family walk across the street.
Yeah, gosh. Simon Johns, Tim Quirk, Lynn Tamarcio, Bud Cole. Questions here. Katie Lennon, Mena, we got almost 100 people on LinkedIn right now tuned in. We got another 31 on the YouTube. Terry Head, friend of ours, a major tipping point for the industry.
Amen. Great comment. This is a dynamic moment for this industry. It'll take us in many different directions. We don't know yet. Well, and the other thing is, it's interesting. So in government acquisition, probably a lot of your listeners are not dealing on the government acquisition side, because this is true what's called FAR contracting, Federal Acquisition Regulations. And what has become so typical in any decent size acquisition is there are going to be protests. I think that is the next thing. I'm not exactly sure of all the rules, but I know there's a time limit once an award has been made for a protest to be issued. There is a timeline. I think it's 15 days. I'm not 100% sure. So very quickly, we could be seeing protests that are offered up to the agency level, which is Transcom, or even probably at the GAO level, Government Accountability Office. And they will look at any protest that comes up and determine if the reasoning behind the protest is viable, and then they'll adjudicate that. It's very interesting. I'll throw this out there.
Yeah, go ahead. Please.
Okay, so Crowley Marine, which is one of the entities that was on the losing end, they are a contract award winner of a different Transcom contract on the freight side, freight all kinds side. And when they won that contract, it was because of a protest that they issued. They initially were a loser. They issued a protest. I mean, it went for almost a year and a half, 2 years. But in the end, Crowley was given the award. And that's about $1 billion contract. So this is just the way of the world. So again, the first check mark's in the box. Who's the award winner? Now the sparks start flying and the legal documents start going back and forth. So we'll see. Now
in that situation that you just referenced with Crowley on the Freight of All Kinds contract, you said that battle was for a year and a half, that protest.
Yep.
What did they do in the interim?
So it was interesting. The contract award was given to the incumbent, which at the time was an organization called Menlo. Menlo had been operating that contract for 4 or 5 years. Then the protest came. So good for Menlo in that the contract continued until the dispute was determined. So they just kept operating and moving freight for that year and a half to a 2-year period till the final outcome determined that Crowley was disadvantaged and somehow and should have been the contract award winner. And then they took over the contract. So the current paradigm would continue until any protests were resolved.
If you're watching this right now, go ahead and hit that like button, share this as well so other people get the news. For those of you who tuned in late, shame on you. I mean, I'm sorry. For those of you tuned in late and don't know who won, Morrow's asking right now, the group of American roll-on, roll-off carrier, including Unigroup, Atlas World Group, Sudeth, And was it
IAL, International Auto Logistics?
And some of you have heard me talk about that contract and the POV contract and what's happened with that. And so very, very interesting. No problem, Mauro. You're forgiven. Let's see here. Who else we got here? Caleb, Janet. Got some great people tuning in here.
Hi, Janet.
My dad says good news. I guess, Dad, it depends on who you work for.
Yeah, amen to that.
My dad will be on tomorrow. I don't know if he can follow this one. We got Steve tuning in as well out there in California. Let's see who else we got here asking questions. Dick Scaffa from National Valence. Hey, Dick. Tracy Coey, Ed Ooms, Doug, we answered your question. Bud Cole, wow, this is a little shocking. Big players aced out. Tony Waugh, how much... Here's a question from Tony. How much business do Serva, TMM, and Tier 1 lose?
Wow. It's going to be interesting to see how this develops going forward. Does Serva pick up the phone now and talk to Unigroup, which is probably an environment that doesn't happen a lot, but it's going to be interesting to see. Do they call them and say, how can we assist in this? How can we partner with you moving forward? Do any of the other groups do the same? Can they survive a tumultuous period if protests are being issued? So again, there's not enough trucks in any one of these groups focusing on the domestic side to get the job done. So there's going to have to be partnerships and relationships that are going to have to be built, developed, massaged. This is a brave new world. We're a new normal.
Yeah, you're talking about 400,000 moves. You're talking about what's the number, 260 on the domestic side?
That's about right. Yep.
Thereabouts, pre-COVID. So 260,000 shipments. I mean, last time I checked on the FMCSA, and don't hold me to this, but here I go. There was about 2,000 trucks registered to United Van Lines. So if you start to think about that, you probably got 4,000 trucks in that group, maybe, servicing 260,000 shipments. Just rough back of the napkin math that doesn't work. So,
and even beyond that, to your point, there are many drivers out there, many either company and or agency or, owner operators that don't operate in the DoD environment. What are going to be the incentives to bring more of them over? Or, what are the negatives when you come to the relocation management company side, the corporate side, to the COD side? I mean, there are other that live and die on that, and you can't pull every driver over. So obviously, relationships have to be built. Well,
and to your point about picking up the phone, right? I mean, at this point, if I'm Unigroup and Atlas after the champagne hangover wears off, I pick up that phone call and I call the other van lines, the Stevens and the Arpins and the North Americans and the Allieds and the Nationals and I'm having these conversations like, okay, what can you guys sign up for?
That's right. Funny you say that after the party's over. I picked up, I won't give any names, but I picked up and called one of the principals on the winner's side, and it was a party going on. There's no question about it.
Yeah, I imagine. I mean, this is a generational win there.
An existential win. Yeah,
what happened
or loss.
Now, part of Tony's question was Serva, TMM, and Tier 1. Well, Serva owns van lines, but TMM and Tier 1 do not. These mega move management companies that might manage 200 SCAT codes, and for people that don't understand what a SCAT code is, Standard Carrier Alpha Code, is basically shorthand for a military contract, and there's about 900 of them on the domestic side. And so some of these manage 200, so that's a huge share. You're talking about over a 20% share. Hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. What happens to these guys April 2021?
I mean, great question. I guess between now and then, we'll find out. Is there any opening? Because look, an organization like the winner or the consortium of the winner, there's no question you're going to have to staff up quickly. and have expertise in the military arena, maybe there's some type of role that the tier ones, that the TMMs can play in this new environment. I don't know. I guess it just depends on what kind of role or what kind of strategy the award winner has as to what what functions they'll outsource and what are they going to insource. What are they going to do themselves, or will they take advantage of some of the current infrastructure so they don't have to start from ground one and build up again? So who knows? But I guarantee you, well, I don't guarantee it, because there will be calls to lawyers probably going on right now. But besides those calls to the lawyers, there may be plenty of calls from amongst the four bidders to see what kind of relationships they can build with one another.
We got some great comments coming in. Megan Harless, military spouse who's been on this program, says very interesting. I'd love to know from Ms. Harless what she thinks about the outcome and the impact it might have on military spouses,
families and
service members, right? Yeah. Janet says, I think this could be an amazing time for independent small movers to help as OA and DAs on corporate individual moves. Oded kind of hops in there. Janet, you're absolutely right. I think you're going to see RMCs a lot more willing to work with independents if they can't get their capacity from the van lines. Interesting points.
Yeah, I mean, all great points. I don't think we know right now what the landscape is going to look like in a year, 2 years from now. Will all the independents be doing all the DoD work? Will they be focused then on being subcontractors on the corporate side? Will it be the reverse? Will, depending on pricing, where will the drivers be going? Will this drive pricing up? Will it drive pricing down based on the fact we've got, I'll use this word, it's probably not the right word, but you've got a monopoly in town now, at least on the DoD side. So
interesting. We've got some more questions coming in here too, and I want to make sure I get to everybody as we draw from Chuck's extensive wisdom. Mena,
I don't have any answers.
I know we're just blowing hot air over here. Mena El Safori, how is it going to impact the Gulf area?
The Gulf area. Which Gulf are we talking about?
Let's assume the Gulf of Mexico. Let's assume the United States Gulf.
I don't think any different in the Gulf of Mexico. I think she's talking about Middle East Gulf, and it'll be interesting to see. There are some barriers to entry for organizations and who can work with whom in these DoD type environments. But again, I think it's a brave new world. What it used to be is going to be very different from what it looks like. So there may be opportunities for those that are operating in the Gulf region that have not been involved in the DoD, because we're big in big presences in Saudi Arabia, Bahrain. Those areas are big, and so where it was somewhat of a closed market before, maybe that opens the doors for some.
Very interesting. Stanley Burke says, hi, guys. Chuck, what will be the impact on getting warehouses approved to store military shipments and or NTS?
Okay. Two things. I think the idea of storing in SITs, shipments that are in transit, the idea of warehouse approval, that maybe go away.
It might go away. It might just be commercial.
Completely. So that's right. It's going to be up to the contractor to ensure the safety and security of a member's and military family's household goods. And the idea of inspectors, or the idea of particularly warehouse inspections, I'm not sure where that stands. It may go away. On the non-temporary storage side, which would be probably termed on the corporate side more permanent type storage, that is not included right now under the GHC. That is totally separate. So that'll continue to operate in the same environment that it has in the past. They were looking at trying to include it at first. Then they were looking at operating a separate contract for that. And now they've kind of tabled that to see, let the dust settle, let the dust clear in the GHC, and then we'll see what to do in that non-temp storage, permanent storage environment later.
Great stuff here. Terry Head says total evaluated price of almost $20 billion over the life of the initial and optional years of an 8-year contract. $20 billion.
Just give me a little bit of that. Give me a 1%. I'm a 1%er. Help me out.
Sony John says hi from GAC Bahrain. Bud Cole asks, just how much control will this consortium have?
Well, moving forward, in my mind, it's complete. They're obviously going to have to work as a contractor to U.S. Transportation Command and the Department of Defense, but they are handing over control of the move management of the program and utilizing the expertise of that group. So there is huge control. They're going to have all the shipment awards. They're going to have the decision making on who their subcontractors are, what companies they work with, and what companies they do not work with. So they have huge control moving forward.
Let's see here. Radhika, hi. Sylvia, hi. Steven Simpson, Nitesh, Mark Gray, please list the consortium members who won the contract again.
Sure. This is, again, I don't have an inside privy to all the details. This is what I understand the winners of the contract contain. It's American roll-on, roll-off carriers, ARC. It's Unigroup. You're scrolling it. It's Atlas, it's Sudeth, and it's IAL, International Auto Logistics. Those are the major components of that consortium as I understand it.
Right, allegedly. That's what we think.
Please don't get me sued because I left somebody out or I put somebody in that it's not in there. But I'm pretty sure that those are
that's what we're hearing right now. That's what we're hearing. If anybody has any news to the contrary, leave it in the comments. Priyan from India, Mark Gray, Sonny, Brian Rivers, First Tech Credit Union checking in. Man, we got a lot of people here.
You got a credit union checking in? I want to get one of those PPP loans. Can I get some of that?
The money's gone, Chuck. You snooze, you lose, man. Hello, let's see. Eric Scorzelli, Mena Elsfori. Down the line, are you willing to do mergers to some small companies to expand your capacity? So she's asking about the mergers and partnerships with smaller companies.
Yeah. I wouldn't term it as mergers, though. I mean, I understand the thought process, but this is going to be subcontracting arrangements. You have a single contractor that it will answer to the U.S. government, and then any of the other origin agents, destination agents, haulers, other people that are participating on whatever level would be considered subcontractors to the prime group that we've just been talking about.
Megan answers our question to her. Of the companies listed in the group who won, there are a few that do not sit well with military families. I imagine many families will move forward with PPMs.
That's personally procured moves. That's them doing their own thing in a
city moves in the streets.
Or going out and finding their own mover. That's very possible. I don't know. I mean, I feel, look, nobody's perfect. I feel very comfortable with the professionalism of all of these organizations. They are all involved in corporate reload. They're all involved in COD moving. They're involved in every market, every strata of the moving industry, domestic, international. So that's
they are. They are classy organizations. I mean, yes, there's bad moves and there's bad drivers and there's bad situations that can arise anywhere. I do, of course, enjoy her comment though.
I get
so I'm going to let that sit there just for an extra beat. Elena Anderson Delay.
Mr. Controversy here. Yeah.
Elena Anderson Delay says, I'm sure the consortium will need extensive subcontractors in order to meet demand.
No question. They cannot, just for those, they cannot do it. But there's currently 900 direct contractors, what are called transportation service providers, TSPs, that are part of the DoD household good program. We're going from 900 to 1. I will tell you, particularly and this is my fear, for the International Association of Movers, we represent many of the international forwarders that are involved as TSPs in this business. And that is I think the most at-risk group. And that is why I have not been in favor of the GHC. They are put at great risk. Many of them, you talked about it, are generational companies with 2, 3, 4, 5 employees that have, been working in this business for decades. And all of a sudden, I fear that the expertise that they have, the history they have with working with military families gets thrown out the window because, again, it goes back to that organization that's going to have to build efficiencies to work with this wealth of subcontractors. If there's one big guy that they can work with versus 15, 20 small guys, what are you going to choose to do?
Yeah. Just from an administrative standpoint, it's so much easier to work with large companies, right? They have large footprints, which leads me to ask a question here. How does this impact the consolidation that we are seeing in the moving industry, the relocation industry? We're seeing a lot of consolidation.
Well, don't we see this as just a form of consolidation? We're taking 900 and we're giving it all to one. So in my mind, though it may not be a formal merger and acquisition type, but it's a consolidation of power, of buying power, purchasing within our industry. So this may be at the top of the heap in terms of what we have seen. And, we've heard the news recently about the one consolidation that may have fallen apart between Cardis and Serva.
That's actually the next question here. Larry Lukfar asks, do you see a connection with this announcement and Serva pulling out of the Cardis purchase?
I don't know any of the details, only what all the folks have read. I'm afraid this is going to end up in court, unfortunately. But it could have played a role. I think potentially maybe a bigger factor in this may be the pandemic and the access to cash that probably drained out of the Serva purchase that they thought maybe it's not the right time to pull the trigger. I don't know that probably has the most speculation.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of theories of people trying to connect the two, and I think it has a lot more to do with COVID-19 and the bottom falling out of the relocation business. And, I think that has more to do with it. Dawn Hazel, I think you will see Allied and North American and their agents being subcontractors to ARC as well as other asset-based companies. It will take a lot of trucks to handle all of this, so could get other movers.
Don's completely correct. It is the smaller entities that I worry about. There's plenty of IAM members and members of other organizations that are independent movers that have a footprint in a military-focused arena. Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, Abilene, Texas. There's nothing else there but military moving. And so if I'm a Unigroup agent in Abilene, Texas, and I'm a Serva agent in Abilene, Texas, is Serva going to try, again, questions. I don't have answers, and I hope it's not the case, but they've got contractual arrangements with those guys. Are they not going to fully support them versus someone who is not flying their colors and someone who is an independent? I don't know. I think they need a ton of capacity, but there are going to be, I still believe, winners and losers, and there's going to be some losers that end up closing the doors when they are viable entities.
Yeah, for sure. Dawn goes on to say, don't forget there is still all the corporate business contracts that need to be serviced.
No doubt about it.
And I think that's super important because when people watch this show, we have a ton of people in the global mobility and relocation space that watch this show and they say, Ben, you're talking about military moving. It's such a subset. It doesn't have any impact on me. I'm like, no, when the 800-pound gorilla beats his chest and, everybody feels it, and this move of 400,000 shipments globally, 260,000 within the United States, when that shifts to a consortium of players from, to your point before, 900, individual contracts, they probably controlled, 10,000 trucks, and it shifts to a consortium of basically 2 van lines, a large agent, and some logistics companies. that's going to leave a gaping hole of need for capacity on the corporate side is what I see. And I think it cannot be underestimated the what that shift's going to do next year in 2020.
Well, the question is, who's going to be doing what? And what is the pricing? Maybe this could be a positive because DoD has expectations of improvement of quality, increased capacity, reduced claims as a result of the contract. Okay, to get that, that's going to cost somebody some money. You're going to have to get the best of the best if you want to do that. Okay, then you're going to have to pay the best of the best. If not, you're not going to get the premium service. So what does that mean? Maybe corporate has to step up and increase to be able to compete with the best of best. Or the other extreme is, does that award winner squeeze and say, I've got all the traffic. You want to play with me? You're going to have to do it at my price. Or see you later.
The military has historically paid a lot better in the summer. I say historically, in recent history, in the summer than the corporate business has. And it's interesting because in the military, you file rates every year and you file them for the off-peak and the peak. And, if they're going to want access to capacity, they may have to start reevaluating the way they procure. The corporate side procures moving services as well. Eric Scorzelli goes on to say it doesn't work if you add in all their existing business. I think he's talking in terms of let's say United and Atlas there, because they do. I mean, their trucks are full already. I mean,
yeah, and during the peak season, you're right. But that's not necessarily the case in the off-peak. So that's the other piece. Do I need subcontractors doing a 3-month period in what is kind of traditionally the peak season? And so I utilize them. And then in the non-peak season, I'm going to support my agency networks and maybe not others to the same level. These are all questions, great questions by everybody.
Great questions. We're seeing, let's see, Dora from Brazil. Shout out to you. Sean Wood in Dubai, always checking in. Appreciate you, Sean. Matthew Odick out in Denmark. Hey, if anybody's overseas and supports U.S. military moving overseas, I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions as well. Dick Scafford, please remember these 4,000.
Shout out to Matthew, Mr. Odick, though. Yeah, he's the man.
Yeah. Is that how you pronounce his last name? He told me otherwise. That's an inside joke.
That's how I pronounce it.
Dick Scaffa, please remember these 4,000 trucks are already busy with their other lines of work. Exactly. I mean, there's going to be some major reshuffling to be done 100%. There, which is great for guys like me, frankly, who are selling corporate moving services for North American van lines. I mean, I'll just be honest, right? I mean,
this may turn into corporate moving. You've got an account. That account is that contract award winner, and you're going in to sell your services. It could very easily turn into that. And you've got to show you're the best of the best.
Terry Head goes on to say protests must be initiated 10 days after award or 5 days after debriefings with losing bidders. Protests can be with the DOD. They can be with the GAO, General Accounting Office, or Federal Court of Claims.
Yep, that's the big one right there. And my organization, under Terry's leadership, has undergone a few of those ventures into the Court of Federal Claims against the government. These are significant and they're pretty darn expensive. Take my word for it. But when I've been hearing numbers of $2 to $2.5 million just to produce a bid for this. I mean, bringing in contract writers' expertise. I know one group that had 30 people working on this 6 days a week, full time, and bringing in contractors besides that. So yeah, the wherewithal that some of these companies have to be able to spend another $200,000 or $300,000 or $400,000 in a lawsuit, it makes sense after I spent $2.5 million. I mean, no brainer.
Yeah, seriously. Let's see here. Enrique from Spain, Klaus from Bahrain. Let's see, Alexandra from Colombia. A lot of people checking in overseas right now. It's awesome. Christian, great to follow the stream and your objective discussion from the Netherlands. Hey, Christian. James Grady, shameless plug.
I didn't realize you had such a worldwide audience. This is amazing.
Only when you come to party. Chuck.
Yeah,
That's when
right.
they all pop out. James Gray, shameless plug, message me if you need capacity this year. I love when somebody sells me vacuum cleaners too, like in the feed. It's like,
It's going to be interesting. So Eric is on Scorselli, and maybe some of the other, the third party companies that are handling all of the ancillary services that the movers don't handle. That's another group or another industry that is impacted by this, where there were 900 potential customers. Now there's only one. I'm interested to see what effect that's going to have on that particular arena. Very interesting.
Yep. Emily Leonard asks, will independent agents have to qualify for Unigroup, or will the structure of agency, I'm assuming she says, will structure change? So will independent agents have to qualify for Unigroup, or will structure change?
No, I don't think qualify in quotes for Unigroup. You maintain your own agency, but I'm sure they are going to be talking about quality standards and processes that you have to follow if you want to be a subcontractor for the contract award winner. So be expecting operating instructions, capabilities, requirements that you'll have to meet if you hope to participate. You don't have to become a Unigroup or an Atlas agent, though.
Guy Lambert says, nice job. Emily goes on to ask, does military families have a voice? As Megan mentioned, they aren't happy with some of the winners. Do they have a voice? I mean, they had a voice, so it kind of got us here. Yeah. Right? I mean, let's be honest.
Amen. That's right. We are here probably because I don't think that if you would talk to Megan, this was maybe the concept that she envisioned when her change.org petition went forward. But do they have a voice? To be honest with, at this point, I'm not sure what that voice is. I mean, the current structure goes away. Will there be transportation offices as there are now? Will there be DOD personnel, civilians that they can go to ask questions and gain support? I think that structure stays in place. So yes, but there's no place else to go. You have a contract award winner, and they're going to be making decisions on who your service providers are.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure what you can say.
What does the customer voice look like in the face of a monopoly? It's when I call my power company, I can tell them everything I want to tell them about their service, but at the end of the day, there's only one guy that turns the lights on, right? So, I mean,
great analogy. Analogy.
Megan says, we have a small voice, not as loud as it should be and not heard. Yeah, I mean, once the toothpaste is out of the tube on this thing, I mean, and the contract's awarded and the current infrastructure is blown up, and it's April 2021 or June 2021, whenever this thing's fully implemented, you don't go back. You can't go back.
Where do you go back to? Once the current infrastructure is torn apart, if the contract does not go as you thought it would, how do you put Humpty Dumpty back together again? You can't. So it's going to be the government working with the contractor, massaging the requirements in the contract to hopefully make it as successful as possible and a positive for military families and the industry.
Well, speaking of military families, Ms. Harless, a friend of the program, comes back and says, not the program we wanted when we started, but it was determined by General Lyons. This was the plan. There was no going back.
Well, General Lyons, if you're listening, you were one smart guy. Let me tell you, from the very beginning, we tried to push back hard. But General Lyons did a really different strategic plan on this than many others have done in the past. He took a top-down approach. He went straight to, he's a 4-star general, the top rank in the military, and he went to his counterparts in all of the different services, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine. He went to the chiefs of staff, the 4 stars in those other organizations that run those services, and said, this is what we want to do. I want your buy-in. He got their buy-in, and because of that, it was pushed from top down, versus what they normally do is start out at staff levels and start working the details and working through all of the little iterations that need to be done. But no, when my 4-star general in my service and I'm in the Army and he says this is going to happen, well, I got my marching orders and I'm marching forward. And that's what he did. And it was brilliant. I don't hate to say it. It just was. And he was ahead of us at every step in this approach. And we were always trying to play catch up, unfortunately.
Well, now I hear that he's now he's going to be transitioning out of his position. At least I heard that before this actually gets implemented. And there's some discussion around who his successor is going to be, and if that person's going to have the same stomach for the pushback that's going to be happening.
Well, if that would have happened a few months ago, then that might have been the case. The contract has been awarded. We'll see where anything protests or any other issues come up before we get to February of next year. But this train has left the station, and we're moving forward. We'll see. But I heard rumors that General Lyons may be leaving, but they typically are a 3-year billet, a 3-year stay, and his 3 years won't end until around summer, of 21.
Okay.
So we'll see, and unless something is out there that we don't know about. There's been plenty of rumors, but unless there's something else that's out there we don't understand or know about, he's going to be around through at least the beginning of the implementation.
Yep, makes sense. Megan goes on to say, at this point, it's what we have to do. What can we got to do what we got to do to make it as successful as possible, so families don't get hurt in the end and left hanging in the wind.
I've got a thought. We're already working on it.
Yeah.
So we've done a lot of congressional engagement, and we thought we had some supporters, and we do in both the Senate and the House side of the U.S. Congress. One of the things we're starting to push right now is for an oversight hearing. We're hoping that the House Armed Services Committee, maybe the Senate Armed Services Committee, or one of the subcommittees on readiness that have oversight of the household arena, will call for an oversight hearing where we're going to call to have the General Lyons brought in to testify. We would like to see the award winner come in and testify. And let's talk about the metrics by which we're going to measure success. Let's talk about engagement with the current industry structure. Let's talk about anything and everything to get it on the public record moving forward, so we can hold General Lyons, the contractor, U.S. Transcom, hold their feet to the fire to ensure that we don't have a major downturn in service, a major downturn in utilization of the different strata of the industry, so that nobody is really hurt, particularly the military families that are doing the moving.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I mean, the devil's in the details and the execution, and I think it's important to get them on the record about how the execution is going to be carried out. Megan goes on to say, actually, let me know when it happens, Chuck. I'd like to be at that hearing.
Oh, heck, Megan, you might be one of the people that are testifying, so you better be ready. I need your help in this.
Jeanette, Chuck, I heard the GIPSO offices were going to phase out over a 5-year span. Is that true? Also, in DPS, or lack thereof, still going to be utilized, DPS being the system that the shipments are awarded through, by the way.
Our understanding is that right now they are looking, DOD and Transcom are looking at what the roles and what a reorganization within the DOD transportation offices will look like moving forward. Our understanding is it's going to be status quo for 3 years, not 5 years, and that they will then reevaluate what roles and what tasks the GIPSO, the Joint Personal Property Shipping Offices, will play moving forward. But for right now, it's 3 years, maintaining, though potentially doing some restructuring. an example, there are people that are involved at a transportation office, a gypso, that award shipments, that do the allocation. Well, there's no such thing as that anymore once this comes to be play, because every shipment goes to the same entity. So they have to be, for lack of a better term, repurposed in somehow. But one of the things we talked about and fought on was the concept that there may be significant job loss within the government, and there's some prohibitions of that. But their thought was, well, we'll just keep everybody in place for right now.
Right. Don't they also do counseling as well of members? Is that another function?
That's a big question. So initially, counseling was part of the contract. The contractor was going to take over counseling worldwide. When the actual contract came out, there were some aspects of the bid that called for the ability of the military services to decide at what level they would continue counseling and at what level the contractor would do the counseling. I think that is yet to be determined.
We've got more questions coming in. We're going to answer all of them. That's my promise. Chuck says he's got 5 hours for this conversation. So we're going to go ahead and answer all the questions. Now that I got him on here, I got him. He can't leave now. No, but we've got a few more questions here. I want everybody, please hit the like button. Let everybody know you're watching. Let everybody know that we're on. I see people tagging other people right now, which is awesome because people need to know that we're having this conversation. Martha Walters, will there be rate filing in 2021?
That's a great question. I mean, this is a critical question. The answer is yes. I think there will be. And remind me, I got something to add on to this. So those rates obviously would be good from May 15, 21 through May 14, 22. So whether or not they'll be utilized or not fully is a question. They would be utilized on the international side of the program, which under the contract does not initiate until October of 21. So there will be a peak season on the international side, and those rates would be effective. They may not. They may solicit rates in case there's some kind of a delay. This is a backup plan on the domestic side, but if rates are filed in the January, February timeframe for the current DoD program, but we have full implementation before May, then those rates aren't going to be necessary.
Wow.
So one other thing. One of the things we've pushed. Thank you very much. You're supposed to help me.
You remind me, I'll remind you. How about that?
Okay. We've asked for a long time. What's the backup plan? Let's say that the bidder is not as successful and don't meet the mandates that you have asked for in the contract. What's the fallback? Is there a fallback? And to answer your question, I personally don't think there is. We've been told one idea is that they would encourage companies, those 900 companies that are participating now, to continue to file rates for 3 years, even though they wouldn't be getting any work, but to continue to file rates. So in case there was a drop off in the performance of the contractor, they may be able to go back to the old program. I think that's pie in the sky. They think that is a crock of you know what. And so I personally don't think there is a backup plan. But
yeah, because rate filing is so much fun. Let's just keep doing that for no reason.
Oh yeah, you got to pay for that. And do you have to keep insurance? And do you have to keep bonding in place? And do you have to file financial reports? And
I gotta pay my accountant $5-10 grand just to file.
Sure. These things are all free. You can just do all those things. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Let's see here. Nigel Lowe from Saudi Arabia. Tim Quirk wants to talk about IAM in San Diego. Sure.
Me too.
What's up with IAM in San Diego, Chuck?
Right now, we are on for San Diego. We launch our website for the meeting on May 1st. So Friday, we launch the website. We start opening registration on May 26th. We are planning to have a wild party, wild session Ben Cross is going to be our MC. He's going to be running things. He's going to be on the ones and twos, spinning.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Okay, yeah. Chuck's letting it out of the bag. I do hope to support. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. San Diego's a great town too.
Great
town. It's a beautiful time of year to be there.
So I do have to say, we understand a couple of things. Obviously, people are going to be apprehensive about signing up for a conference that in this current environment, we're not sure. I mean, we don't have crystal balls. We don't know what's going to happen with this pandemic. So we're offering risk-free registration. You register, you get a full refund if you decide for any reason not to come. The other thing, we are looking at all kinds of alternatives for virtual. I think we may end up having some type of hybrid where people can attend if they choose, but through whatever restrictions or safety concerns or flights or whatever it may be, you choose not to come, and you will be able to participate in a virtual environment. And we've got all kinds of proposals on the table right now to have people engage with one another. And it's become commonplace. I mean, we're doing it right now, obviously.
Right.
And you can do things like this successfully virtually. So we're looking at full conference, hybrid conference, potentially, if for God forbid we see an uptick and people can't travel again, then a full virtual. But we're going to have a conference. Our first and foremost, pushing it out there, is we're going to be in San Diego at the Manchester Grand Hyatt, October 21 through 24. We haven't had any industry meetings for quite some time. This is going to be the breakout, I hope.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be great. And I'm just gonna put those details up here again as well. IAM conference, so people know, and those of you who are watching.
October 21 through 24 at the Manchester Grand Hyatt.
Beautiful property, by the way, right on the water there, right across from the bar that was in Top Gun, by the way, if anybody's interested in over there for a one-on-one. Let's see here. Mark Morgan says, does the winning bid include pricing for domestic and international services? Who controls the pricing piece for household goods?
The contractor controls the pricing completely. They have contract rates with the government, and I don't know how they did it, but those contract rates do have some inflationary caveats in them, but they've set rates for 8 years out, something along those lines. How you do that, I have no idea, but they've done that. And though any then relationships that they would have with their origin agents, destination agents, haulers, shippers, shipping lines, etc., all of that is negotiated between the contractor and those entities.
That's incredible. I don't know how much a cardboard box is going to cost in 5 years. I don't know how anybody would file.
Heck, I don't know what it's going to cost tomorrow. What are masks going to cost? Are we going to be wearing those in homes in 8 years?
And they're going to be required, and they're not going to be reimbursed for per the Transcom call this morning. Katerina, great job, guys. Congrats on the valuable podcast. You're welcome. Greg, Jurgen, Ed Cohen, hello from San Diego. Hi to Chuck. Hope to see I am in San Diego.
Yep, you're invited, Ed.
Ed's the unofficial conference spokesperson for San Diego. He's always giving me updates on all the conferences that have been canceling down there for past months. Ron Cox, Don Mergart, Casey Myers, Ben and Chuck, thanks for the info. Daniel Crisp. Yep. Mark Moose from Switzerland. Wow. Jake Peroni. If the award winner, okay, here's a question from Jake. Jake Peroni, President Central Van Lines. If the award
winner,
winner,
of my board of directors, so I've got to answer this question.
Yep. And this is a well thought out question. If the award winner intends to subcontract to international freight forwarders who are international market TSPs in the current DP3 program, they need to consider announcing that and making those relationships now. If they intend to manage international forwarding in-house, or if they don't let international forwarders know now that they will have a home in the GHC, there will likely be disastrous and irreconcilable impact to the international household goods supply chain starting this peak season.
I'm not sure I can add a word to that. That said it all. That is one of the reasons behind wanting to have this this session with Congress, this oversight session, because we want to understand, just for some of the reasons that Jake has laid out, what is the strategy, what is the role that the contractor envisions for particularly international freight forwarders. I mean, really, if they choose to take freight forwarding in-house, non-asset-based requirement, they obviously could do that. And there are 170 companies that are transportation service providers in the international arena, and that entire contracting base could disappear if they so choose. I don't think that's the direction, but within Atlas, within Sudeth, within Unigroup, they've already got forwarding arms. So they're at least going to take on some of that responsibility.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to imagine how many forwarders you might need to have, you know.
I mean, it's a huge number. I mean, you said it. We're between unaccompanied baggage, which are air shipments, and household goods shipments. You're talking 140,000 shipments or so. So that's going to take some significant forwarding.
Let me know if you can see us right now. I'm having some people say they can't actually visually see us. I think we broke the internet, or LinkedIn is censoring Chuck's face. One of the two is happening right now. So just let us know that you have a visual. Okay.
Maybe it's the contractor. I don't know. They're listening in. They got power. They got power.
Megan Harless asked if there's going to be a military panel in San Diego.
Oh, there will be multiple military panels. And to be honest with you, I'm going to offer up our conference as a introduction of the new contract award winner, and give them an opportunity to have a platform, a stage to introduce themselves to the moving industry.
I think that's great. I think people are going to want to hear from them and understand how they can partner and what their intentions are. You know, people are liking the hybrid conference idea. Ed Cohen, hybrid is good. Hosea Botley, hybrid, smart thinking. San Diego is one of my favorite cities. Me too. Boris,
you tell Hosea he better be there. Forget that hybrid stuff. I want him on site.
Yeah, Jose, get your butt down there. Boris Papula, very much hoping to see everyone in San Diego at the end of October. Yep, KC Barbecue, that's the pub across the street, Ed. Yep, first beer's on Ed, everybody.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, right?
Hope Ed's got a budget.
Has he been to IM? Does he understand what he's signing up for? I don't know.
He has. He was in Chicago.
Woo. What a great conference. You guys always throw such a phenomenal conference too, Chuck.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
It's a side note. This will probably be like my 10th one. Is fantastic. Paul Blunt. Paul. Great to finally get some of this information. Thank you, gentlemen. Yeah, it's important that we bring it to you as soon as we had it. We didn't even bother fact checking. We just went live, and we built the plane in the air for you guys out there. So, so I hope we don't get in too much trouble. We're just trying to be the tip of the spear here for you. Chuck Bailey, see you too, buddy. Let's see. Steve says LinkedIn's working fine. Mark says good. Matthew sees us clearly. Everybody sees us.
Thought my face may have broken it.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. Well, I think we've answered everybody's questions, which is awesome. Chuck.
So if I could, if people have questions, issues, need to talk, open door policy for IAM. I'm going to throw a shout out to Dan Bradley, Daniel.Bradley, Bradley, at iamovers.org, and Charles.White at iamovers.org. If you have questions, if you need information, feel free to reach out. We want to talk to our members, but I'm always recruiting. If you have any interest in joining IAM, we're coming out with some new and exciting offerings here in the very near future. Love to talk to any of you guys, and even if you're not a member, we'll help.
Awesome. Yeah. I remember along those lines, a good friend of mine, Sonny Singh, talked to, I remember him telling me the story. He had a little tiny moving company in Northern Virginia, and he just reached out to you kind of on a lark, like, hey man, thinking about taking this moving company to the next level, and you were one of those key people that mentored him and said, hey, well, there's this DOD opportunity, and he couldn't spell DOD, but he managed with some guidance from IAM to get into that program. And then my previous company actually ended up acquiring his, and it's just been that was the beginning of our friendship, me and him, and he always attributes you and thanks IAM for that guidance in his career. So definitely a wonderful resource there at IAM and Dan and Chuck. So, hey, without further ado, we had over 100 people here. I hear the garbage truck going by. We had over 100 people here on LinkedIn. We had over 50 on Facebook and YouTube. This has been fantastic. Chuck, thank you so much.
No problem. No problem.
Really appreciate
Glad to do it.
This is great. Hey, everybody, this has been a special edition of Love and Relo. We do have Jane Woolston next from Sabre Corporation coming on at 4 o'clock Eastern. So I get to do this all over again and talk about global mobility matters and corporate relocation. And then tomorrow is my dad. My dad's coming on. So
I'm looking at that one, and I'll have lots of questions for him.
So sharpen your pitchforks, light your torches. My dad's going to be on Friday. But anyway, this has been fantastic, Chuck. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right, no problem. Thank you, Ben. Talk to you soon.